Welcome back to the entertainment room, where I will dive into a review that I wrote out a while ago and kept getting pushed back for one reason or another, and that is the 2023 home invasion horror flick Sick, and taking place during everyone's favorite year, 2020. One of the main subplots being the topic of conversation that most definitely did not get out of hand or hostile, COVID. And don't worry, I'm not here to fill you in on my thoughts or opinions on the pandemic, vaccine, no vaccine, mask, no mask, take your opinions and shove it up your ass. None of that matters here. I'll only discuss COVID as it pertains to our characters and to the story. And the story follows Parker and Miri, two friends going to a remote house, alone to quarantine during the pandemic, and a few masked assailants try to break in and kill them for some reason. So, in an industry where numerous home invasion films are pumped out pretty regularly, is Sick another throwaway addition, or does it have enough traits to stand out among the others? Let's talk about it. So Sick is a Peacock original film directed by John Hyams, who directed another decent cat and mouse horror film in 2020 called Alone, which I remember, like I said, being fine, not bad. And I'll run through some spoilers pretty soon, but for right now, I just want to get into some general thoughts. But this is a fine installment into the horror subgenre. There are some thrills and a few decent scares, but there are a lot of predictable moments as well. It often does one of my least favorite things of having this really eerie score play, then abruptly stop immediately before a killer pops out at our characters. So that did annoy me pretty regularly here and there. But the main characters are just okay also. I didn't find myself that invested in them, but I love these types of films with the thrill of the chase, so it was a watch that kept me invested. It doesn't try much that is new as far as the progression other than the COVID subplot. And speaking of COVID, if you are in general exhausted by the topic, whether it is discussed seriously or as satire, maybe sit this one out. Maybe, but I don't think it gets too out of hand for the most part. And as another plus, the writers appear to stay pretty neutral on their true opinions of the pandemic. The topic is more so poking fun at society's reaction to it and how we handled all the rules and regulations and all the conflicting logic. So that part is more satirical in a dark way, and I'm all about making fun of people and how they react to new things, big topics, so but with that, you'll hear several very familiar quotes, conversations, arguments, but despite the satirical tone, hearing it as it is delivered does still feel kind of cheesy. Maybe that's just a nitpick of mine though, but Sick is not a favorite of mine, but if you enjoy this type of horror film, it does have its moments and a couple surprises, so it's fun enough for a lazy night in. But for now, on to spoilers. So we get a cold open, and it does actually a pretty decent job setting things up. Tyler is in this bustling supermarket filled to the brim with people panic buying, and I think this scene is at least partly comical intentionally, with all the familiarity of the scenario. That paranoia that felt just like yesterday, keeping our distance, and any coughing will have multiple pairs of eyes on you. So Tyler starts getting strange texts from an unknown number, and we get his attack at his apartment later on, and the intensity of the fight was one of the better moments in the film. Some better crafted scares in this tighter, more claustrophobic environment of this smaller apartment, so nothing mind blowing, but a nice start. Now, I do wish they had done something different with the getup these killers wear. They just look like your stereotypical cat burglars. Have you ever played The Sims, the video game, and had your house broken into? They look like that guy. So anyway, Parker and Mary are once again on pause from college and agree to go to the secluded cabin, owned by Parker's apparently very rich family, to isolate together. And Parker takes this whole isolation and mask thing much lighter than Mary. They also start getting some strange texts like Tyler did, so I was curious right away to see the connection between the three of them, if there was one. And one positive I will give this movie is the look of the cabin and the landscape. It is stunning, yes, but also just a great location to shoot this type of story, so there was promise there. And then we get Parker's ex named DJ, who makes this a trio when he shows up uninvited to the house and they reluctantly let him stay. and this character is obviously atrocious and is likely there for a kill. And he complains that, oh, let me stay. I already made the long drive all the way out here. Like, no, fuck you, dude. You knew you were not invited. You knew they did not want you there. That's a you problem. You were able to make that long drive out there. That means you're capable of making the fucker back. But no. Just let the Stalker X hang out. That's chill. That's cool. And to seal the deal, he did bring his secret weapon. Weed, because high schoolers and college kids love weed. Works every time, the perfect peacemaker. But once bedtime hits, though, things quickly go bump in the night, and suspense starts to build. And the build-up is rather solid. It's slow in a good way, it takes its time. You get the shots of the characters investigating noises, and in the background, you can see an intruder silently navigating the house, and you'll just see their shadows on the wall. It's pretty unnerving how carefully they're able to slink by unnoticed, so the build-up is really good. And they take their phones in their sleep, deleting their option of connecting with the outside world so the killers can delete them and have some fun in the process. And after they all become aware of the presence of these masked individuals, the prolonged chase ensues. Initially, it was okay with the direction of the confrontation. Some initial jump scares are crafted alright, but the intensity of the chase does really start to fall off as the jump scares increase in number. They could have potentially helped, sure, but again, they just have that cookie cutter formula. Loud, ominous music, followed by it stopping, and immediately having that scare. Typical and so goddamn repetitive. And I did enjoy the reveal of the third killer. At first we thought there's only two, but there's a third one, and it is a woman. Parker tries to beg for help, but when she goes to her car to ask for a ride, she makes her wear a mask before getting into the car because COVID is more intimidating than psychotic killers. But when you find out what's going on here, her nonchalant reaction kind of makes sense, because the mask was actually doused with chloroform, knocking Parker out. So they're all back at the house, and we learn about our trio, a mom, dad, and son team. The son, named Jeb, is somehow hanging on after receiving what should have been significant brain damage from Parker, who just recently beat the shit out of him with a blunt object. But then you have Jason, played by Mark Menchaca, who was also in our director's film Alone, I mentioned earlier. And we lastly have Pamela, played by Jane Addams. And yes, the names Jason and Pamela. Friday the 13th reference. Ooh, sick. And you made them husband and wife instead? Sweet Home Alabama to you too. But Jeb, who likely can't remember his own fucking name, is played by Chris Reed, who is usually more of a stunt performer than an actor, which is cool, and that is essentially what he is here, as he does not have any lines, from what I can remember. But Jason and Pamela, mom and dad, are angry and blame Parker for their youngest son Benji's death from COVID. Because there's a video going around where Parker and Benji are kissing at a party, taking place during the pandemic, and the connection with Tyler, our cold opener death, is that Parker and Tyler also kissed the same night before she kissed Benji. Benji was horribly affected by the virus and suffered and passed away. Now, of course, Parker pokes holes in their motives, saying that they don't know for certain she was the one to pass it on. They didn't even know if she had COVID. And Benji is just as guilty for getting COVID since he made his own choice to go to a crowded, maskless party. And so they realize the error of their ways and they walk out the front door. No, I'm kidding. Parker gets slapped across the fucking face because Wyatt meant she has a point when you're sad and traumatized. But anyway, Parker insists she does not feel sick, therefore can't be sick, but Pamela, of course, came prepared with a COVID test. So she tests Parker, and it reveals that she is COVID positive. Which works out, I guess, because imagine the awkwardness if she was negative. Oh, our bad. I'm so sorry, you two. We'll get going now. I'm sorry about your friend. Hope the funeral goes okay. We're cool, right? And this is a loaded and ridiculous reveal. I'm not sure if it is just filled to the brim with plot holes, or if the motive in Psychosis is supposed to capture people's exaggerations and lack of knowledge about the virus. People's impulsivity with jumping to conclusions, especially when dealing with substantial grief and anger, especially during a stressful time in the world. Because they did go through something traumatic. Maybe they snapped. So while I don't fully buy into all of this, I will give the writers the benefit of the doubt that that was what they were going for, was the extreme overreaction to this whole thing. And also, Benji could have gotten COVID truly from anyone, despite the kiss, but this whole bloated reveal, just take the interpretation as you will. For me, I'm on the fence. Then moving on, Mary and Parker escape and finish off their captors rather quickly, like within a few minutes, and in horror movie fashion, police arrive after the threat vanishes on its own. The end. So, Sick is not very unique. The addition of the pandemic was interesting in places, but not enough to make up for a largely bland execution. And one scene I do look back fondly on, is actually with Parker when she's on this like pallet in the middle of the lake, and she has to avoid a knife coming up from below from one of the killers. And it is one of the more intense moments as outside from the beginning of the film, and that did work well, even though you kind of have to think, why the fuck did she choose the slowest option for getting around versus staying on her feet on land? I don't know, horror movies, but it's a cool altercation. So, and good thing the killer had steel lungs, otherwise he would have drowned. But, moving on. And one more positive, I guess, the runtime is only 77 minutes with credits, which I think was smarter than trying to stretch this movie out to 90 minutes, like most films would do, because it's good enough to keep you invested for a one-time watch, but maybe it's still underwhelming. I can't see what else they would have added to this film, so overall, I will give Sick a 5.4 out of 10. So guys, thank you so much for listening. I have more reviews on the way. Don't forget to follow me on my social media and Spotify and or YouTube if you're listening there. I'm also posting on TikTok daily, so I will see you next time on The Entertainment Room.